Welcome to the Shortwave Radio channel, and in our series where we take a look at the shortwave spectrum megahertz by megahertz, we are going to take a look on this video at the 14 to 15 megahertz spectrum of shortwave. 14 to 15 has a lot of things to actually offer. The first chunk of 14 megahertz is the 20 meter amateur radio band, one of the most popular amateur bands probably. If we take a look at amateur bands in general, I would say that probably 80, 40, and 20 are the most popular of all the bands. And of course, the other bands are used also, but it depends on propagation and all sorts of stuff. So 14 to 14350 is the band. It is first part of the band as usual, like 14,000 to about 14,070 is Morse code. Actually, you probably see some signals here. So here we go. This is a Morse code signal. So this is the first chunk. First chunk of the 20 meter band is populated with CW or Morse code signals. Then you move on to 14 roughly, and this is really approximate, roughly 14070 to 14110 roughly. Digital modes of all sorts. One of the popular ones is, you see it here. This is something like Olivia or some kind of an interesting mode here. So somebody's doing some kind of digital mode here that is interesting. 14074 is the well-known FT4 frequency range for FT8, sorry, digital mode, and this is a very popular mode. Above 14100, mostly it's single sideband signals. So amateur stations are actually talking in single sideband, and this is, of course, the dominant mode for the rest of the band. There's a little chunk around 14290 that is dedicated to AMers. I've heard some AMers from time to time, 14290, 14295. But most of what you'll hear in that range is single sideband transmissions of amateur radio. Usually a lot of activity on the band. It looks quiet a little bit now because of maybe we're kind of midday here, so it's not necessarily the best time for this. But it's one of the very active bands, so tune in. It's a mix of daytime and sometimes even nighttime band. So here you see here. So you see here there is some activity on the 20 meter band. Above 14350, it is mostly all sorts of utilities. I've heard so many things over there. I've heard fishermen talk. I've heard some 14902 is a frequency where I often hear a net of the U.S. Civil Air Patrol and all sorts of interesting signals. CHU Canada has its own time signal on 14670. It usually just skips over here because I'm very close. But lots of interesting stuff mixed in there. Anywhere from military to Civil Air Patrol to fishermen to all sorts of unusual signals that you might find here and there. It's an interesting part of the spectrum to tune around. Like I said, it's mostly daytime, but in the summer, like for example here in Montreal, in the summertime, often we hear this band open, like 20 meter amateur band open 24 hours because signals can go through the pole from Europe, for example. So many AMs are actually using that capability. So tune in, and it's very, very interesting what you'll hear within that range, 14 to 15 megahertz. If you enjoy our videos, please subscribe, give us thumbs up, and thank you for watching our videos.